third episode of Hoop Heart Soul.
Sorry, I'm just laughing.
So the battery is on 20%, and Sandy doesn't think that's going to be enough, and I think 1% a minute is pretty perfect.
I don't think it is. So we had an argument right up until 8 p.m. And then I was like, oh, well, let's go live.
Well, it's like a 30-second altercation more than anything else. Not an argument, since we are talking about the power of words.
This is true. Anyway, at least we got off to a giggle.
Yeah. So, yes, as I said, the topic is refresh. The topic is the power of words, and I've kind of taken a couple of keynotes from my own head, but also just did a little bit of research. The interesting thing that I found was that a lot of the articles that come up immediately when it comes to the power of words has to do with has some sort of religious base. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because I think a lot of people derive their inspiration for change through religion, and that can be a very powerful and uplifting thing. But I specifically went to other places because I didn't want to include in fact, well, just quotes from the Bible and how people interpret that, because I just felt that can be misconstrued or interpreted in any other number of ways. So I've gone for sort of a
intermediate ground?
Yeah, intermediary ground.
Changed my word.
yeah. So the first thing I want to touch on with the power of words is when you and I were young, we always had the thing of, like sticks and stones will break your bones.
Words will never hurt me.
Yeah, and words will never hurt me. And I don't know how many times I said it. I don't think it was like a favorite saying, but it serves as a really good thing for a small child to brush off bullying. And that can have its effect. But
I disagree, sorry. I think it should never have ever been taught.
But then as we grow older, we realize that, words do have power. And when you are bullied sort of verbally, it becomes much more of an emotional base. We were talking in the car about this yesterday on the way to class, and the biggest thing that came up, or the biggest insight I got from that conversation, was the negatives and positives when we speak. So when you speak to someone, and let's say you've gotten really upset with them, and you say something negative, and it could be just off the top of your head, and it's either a brash insult or just something that actually hurt them. That goes straight to your head. This is just a theory of mine, right? So that kind of goes straight to your head, and it lodges itself there, and your brain remembers it because
subconscious.
Yeah, it goes into your subconscious, and your brain remembers it, and so you keep on repeating it to yourself, and it can be very long lasting. I'm not saying everyone holds on to these negatives like that, but then with a positive, what tends to happen is that we are much quicker to shrug off positives. So they come into your life, and someone says, "You look beautiful today."
Thank you.
and people say, "Hello, Chanel." And then you, as they've said that's something positive, you feel it, but you don't necessarily remember it or repeat it to yourself. And so it becomes much more of a heart-centered thing. And when you think back now, even, just for a moment, and think of someone who loves you, and all the positive things they've said to you in the time that you've known them. It could be your mother, your father, or a friend, or whatever it might be. And see how many things you can actually pinpoint, just as an experiment. And see if more of it comes up as a feeling, as opposed to the actual words that were spoken.
So, just on a personal note,
Yeah.
is a story from my past. When I was little, my dad was sitting down and doing math homework with me, and I was trying so hard. I actually really loved math, but I was just a little bit slower, and it was long division. I remember it so clearly, and my dad was, in my mind, I remember him as a genius. And he got very frustrated with me, and he said to me, "I don't understand why you can't get it. Why can't you be more like your brother?" And I held on to that for so long. But the interesting thing is, within a second, my dad turned around and said, "I am so sorry. I said that. I didn't mean that. You're wonderful. You're perfect." But despite the fact that he apologized and I forgave him immediately, and I saw a quote about this: words can be forgiven but never forgotten. And that really sat with me for most of my adult life, because a lot of the things that I attempted, I would go, "Oh, I'm just not as good as the other people." So it's really, really powerful. And when I try and think back on all the really positive things that my dad said to me, and I know that we had beautiful memories together, but I couldn't pinpoint those awesome words. And it's really it's such an interesting, it's so interesting that we hold on to those negative things for so long, and we remember them so clearly, and yet we cannot hold on to the positive things that people say. But having said that, I think that's why it's so important to constantly say positive things to yourself and to other people.
Yeah. So yeah, that actually kind of leads onto another example, saying positive things to people. So at Rockin' the Daisies last year, we set up we had the whole hooping thing there. And I had just finished a workshop and about another hour of teaching people.
Say hi, Tommy.
Another hour of teaching people just sort of on the fly. And the crowd was sort of emptying out, and another girl came along, and she wasn't getting it. And I was still on the floor, so I went to her. And although I said it in a positive way, and I had the best intentions, I literally said to her, "Okay, right now, your hips are like concrete." And I just saw her face and her shoulders drop. She was like, "I just feel so judged right now." And I mean, to this day, I regret those words that came out of my mouth, and I can't take them back. And I tried to make it up to her in that moment by really being more conscious of what I was saying, and I don't think it helped, and I don't know if she'll ever come back to the hoop. So that's that's just one example of another thing sort of going bad in that way. So,
well, not bad. It was just that we are aware of the things that we say now, and I think that's good that you can go, "Oh wow, I said that, and that really came out wrong."
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, because when you're unconscious about the things that you say, that's when it's really problematic.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of on the note of being practical about this. There's 4 things which I picked out, again, just sort of off the top of my head. And the one is choosing your words, then thinking before speaking, listening versus, or not versus, but listening and hearing. When you hear someone, it's like I feel anyway, the difference between the two is like hearing a sound. You hear it. When you listen, you pay attention with all of you. Or when you do listen, you are not only listening with your ears, you're listening with your entire body. You're absorbing information when you listen.
You're present.
You're present. And when you hear something, it's just something that's going to come and go straight out. If you've ever been in the zone at work and someone comes across to you and says, hey, can you do this for me or something, you go, yeah, sure, yeah. And then you keep on typing and clicking. Half an hour later, they're like, did you do that thing? And they're like, and you, what thing? What? No, I don't remember that.
Hello, Andrew.
And hello, Sam. Thank you for joining. We're talking about the power of words. So there were 3 things there. The fourth is a sort of question mantra which I ask myself before I speak, and not all the time. I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is. Is it kind? Is it helpful? And is it necessary? And especially in a moment where you're going to have the heat is rising type thing. In those moments, I find it's really helpful to keep those 3 things in mind. Is it kind? Is it helpful? And is it necessary? And there's also leads on a quote for you by Rumi, the philosopher from, I'm not sure where actually. But he
I think
says,
most people know Rumi.
yeah, most should know Rumi. Somebody tell me where he's from please.
Where?
Yeah.
From when?
From where and when. Yes, thank you. Raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And I think that's really beautiful.
Mm.
So a question, I was going to ask 2 questions, but I think only the real one needs to be asked is for you, Sandy, and for everyone else. Ask yourselves these questions. What are the things you do to change your words or change your speech or change your wording on the fly, on the go, day-to-day basis?
So sometimes I don't, but most of the time I find that I pause a lot. And the only problem is that because I pause a lot and I go, people think that I've finished speaking. And then they start a whole new tangent and I'm like, hey, hold on, no, wait, I haven't finished. I just needed to collect my thoughts. I actually learned that because I used to work with children on the autism spectrum, and we used applied behavior analysis, and we had to be very, very careful about what we said to the kids, and we were not ever allowed to use the word no. And I'm not sure if you've ever tried that. Just in general conversation, when people say, well, if a kid goes for something that they are not allowed to, and your immediate reaction is, no, don't touch that. And we weren't allowed to do that. We had to go, let's play with this. And it was all about redirecting, and we had to be so careful about our language. So I learned to pause before saying things there, because the impact was just incredibly powerful on the kids. Mostly just pausing, and I do sometimes start a sentence and then stop and go, no, what I meant was, and then I will finish the sentence, but with a phrase that is better suited, more positive.
So for me, Sandy is actually my constant reminder. I do tend to lean towards the negative because I actually can't really tell why. Not lean towards the negative, just more in. I just, I find that the words that I use, because I have a sort of a darker sense of humor, then it relays into other areas as well. And I love my dark sense of humor, so I will keep that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're not a negative person.
No, I'm not a negative person. That wasn't what I was getting at. Also clarity, right? So that wasn't very clear.
Ooh.
So Sandy's my constant sort of reminder on that, because she speaks so positively, and she's really helped with that. A really good article, which we'll link for you now on Huffington Post, gives you sort of a lot of the sentences in there are basically, they're very practical. So he's telling you what can be positive and how you can create a positive change, not only in your speech, but therefore in your life. And it's emotionally insightful, it's short, it's compact, and you can, I just really loved it. I read it over about 4 times, because every time I read it, something new came up, and I was like, that's really cool too. So that's a really great one. Then I have my notes.
I just want to, can I just say a little bit about...
For 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
Okay. I've really watched what I say when teaching, especially in our beginners class, because I've realized how powerful it is to give somebody a positive affirmation. And what I've also noticed is at the beginning of our 6-week series, how many of our students will start off saying things like, oh, this is so hard, I can't do this, I'm just not good at this, I have no coords, or all of these very negative self-beliefs. And I love to just take them by the hand and say, okay, let's try this. Can you say, I can totally do this. You're absolutely amazing, and of course you can do this. Sometimes things just take a bit of time. So you can say, I can't do this yet, but I'm totally going to get it. And by the end of the 6-week series, I find that their language and the way that they treat themselves is much more positive, which is really, like, I love seeing that shift happen. And I watch them begin to notice the words that they used on themselves change. So yeah, I think being in the position of a teacher, you are a role model, you are a support and a guide, and it's really, really important to be clear about the message that you're wanting your students to take away. And I think hooping should be a positive experience in all ways.
So that kind of builds. Sorry, we had a low battery. We're on 10% now, so I was right, because we've got 2 minutes left. There is another quote by John Keating, which kind of leads on to, or builds with what Sandy was saying, because one of our mission with Hoop Flow Love is really to change people. And through changing people,
Hi, Dawn. Hi, Shaz.
Hello. By changing people, we change the world, because the world is made up of people, really. And that's, the area that we sort of live in. So John Keating says, no matter what anybody tells you, words and ideas can change the world. And so I put a small challenge to you. It can be right now, it can be tomorrow, anything at all. Find someone, look at them, and say something positive to them. Take them in their entirety, as you would when you would listen to them. Stand, frame them, shoulder to shoulder, and really have a moment with that person. We are going to link two
Tommy,
more.
I love you.
And Tommy knows it. We're going to link two more sort of pieces that I found. And the one is from entrepreneur.com. So it kind of balances business and life really well. It's also got a lot of practical information, but also like your day-to-day situations where you know the positive and negative language might crop up, and just gives really good examples and sort of relates it very well. So I really enjoyed that from the business perspective. And then we have the TEDx talk from Evie Pompouras. So she's seems like an ex-CIA or FBI operative, something like that. Went through intensive training for interviewing, she calls it. But it was definitely interviewing, and she has 6 key points. That is, 1 is listen, 2 is special, 3 is perspective, 4 is self, 5 confidence, and 6 respect. So the first sort of 12 minutes of that really got me. And I think it's the first 4 points really, which is listen, and that's listening with your whole body. Special, making someone feel special simply by listening and by, for instance, remembering someone's name. 3 is perspective, putting yourself in that person's shoes. What are they feeling right now? Tommy loves to share, yeah.
Tommy loves to make people feel amazing.
Yes. And number 4 was, 4 was self. In that when you speak, if you speak well about yourself, it will start resonating, and you'll naturally start speaking well about everyone else.
You know, I was just going to say that I think it's one thing to try and constantly remind yourself to be positive to others, but if you are not taking care of how you talk to yourself, then it's going to be much harder to watch how you talk to other people.
Yeah.
So it's so important to catch yourself when you find yourself going, oh, I'm not good at, or, oh, you know, the word idiot, oh, I can't bear that word, you know, but you so often, you know, it's easy to turn around and say, oh, you're so stupid, you're such an idiot, I can't believe I did that. And it's really, really important to watch those words. And when they do come out, it's okay. Just remember to stop and go, actually, no, I'm not an idiot. I just made a simple mistake, and that's okay because we're human.
Yeah.
And if you can start watching and taking care of the words about yourself, then the rest will fall into place. And when you affect change like that from within, then it ripples out into your community and into the world. And I think what do they always say? Change starts from within.
Yeah.
And I think it's with everything. So remember to love yourself and be compassionate with yourself. Yeah.
So we are finishing up the last sort of 2 minutes. We're just going to have a quick chat about MCHC, which is 1st of April, but we'll get to that. The thing that I want to finish with is another quote that I found by Betty Eady this time. So she says, and this is raw for me, so I might even get a little bit teary-eyed. If we understood the power of our thoughts, we would guard them more closely. If we understood the awesome power of words, we would prefer silence to almost anything negative. In our thoughts and words, we create our own weaknesses and our own strengths. Our limitations and joys begin in our hearts. We can always replace negative with positive.
Do we have that quote somewhere? That's really amazing.
Yeah, we do. Number 26 at the bottom. So, that's about it for the power of words. And thank you so much for joining and everyone for watching. Hello to all of you. So basically,
sorry.
MCHC is happening on the 1st of April. So that's 2 weeks, 2 Saturdays from now. And yeah, we're going to have 4 workshops. Sandy is running the first one with exploring limitations. I'm running the last one with balance and just balance.
You forgot your own words. That's funny.
Balance and rolling with the flow, with the mistakes, with the balance. So, and then of course we have Danny, and he's second up after Sandy. I've done the order all wonky. That's fine.
No, he's not. He goes me,
He's
then
third.
Mbali.
Okay, Mbali's doing shoulder hooping.
Yeah, shoulder hooping, breaks and paddles.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And then Danny's doing ghosting.
Thank you, Chanel.
Thanks everybody for joining us and for participating.
Yeah.
And I hope that you can take something useful away from this and feed your soul. And we hope you have a beautiful evening and are enjoying the rain. I hope you guys all had a bit of rain. I don't think we had that much, but we had about 2 mils here in Komaki.
Yeah, roughly.
Which was really great.
Yeah.
So blessings for the rain. All right, everybody, have a wonderful evening. Have a beautiful weekend. And we'll see you next Thursday, or we'll see you at class on Wednesday.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.